Does the average working American, pictured here, have a higher or a lower standard of living than a king who lived, let's say, 500 years ago? Like if you could grab the average working person and have them trade places with, let's say, Henry VIII, which one would say that their lifestyle had improved and which one would say it had gotten worse? I posted this question on social media and about 80% of people agreed that the modern working person's standard of living would be higher than the king. And I think the 20% who disagree, they were thinking more in terms of the king at the time would be thinking of their lifestyle in compared to the people they see around them. Meaning he was not upset by his inability to buy a plane ticket and fly to Florida for a vacation because he didn't know that was possible. But I think on purely objective terms, if he had to switch places with the average modern working American, that the things available to him on that salary are greater and better than what would have been available to him back then with infinite wealth. And we can ignore all of the trivial stuff, like the fact that he can watch YouTube videos on his phone. I'm saying even if you limit it down to the things that truly matter in life, like relationships and communication and travel and the things that enrich the soul. If our king had a friend or family member or loved one who lived, say, 500 miles away, making that trip would be a nightmare, where he can hop in his Dodge Ram and be there in a day, driving the whole way on a fairly smooth highway and stopping to eat at restaurants. And if in the course of his trip, if he should fall and break a rib and have the bone puncture his lung, all of his infinite wealth and staff and healers could not give him the treatments that our average person would get even in a mediocre hospital emergency room. And you could pick literally anything, like his access to different types of clothes or different types of spices for his food, or his access to just clean water, his ability to see the great works of art or to hear the greatest singers in the world perform. And I think this is fascinating because for the first 99% of human history, this was not true. You could absolutely walk around back then and say, boy, I wish I had lived 1,000 years ago back when this great kingdom still existed and everybody was wealthy and happy. Like, you know that fantasy trope where they've got a sword that's been handed down over centuries, but it's still like the best sword in the land because they've never gotten better at making metal? That used to be a thing. You could look at things and say, wow, they don't make stuff like this anymore. Whereas, of course, now technology advances so quickly that the idea of an army fighting another army that's using weapons from 200 years ago would be comical. Like the metals we make now have to be able to survive being inside of a jet engine. So what would it have been like to go back and tell him that, hey, 500 or so years from now, the average working person would not trade places with you, a king? I think he would say, wow, those people must wake up every single day thanking God that they were born then instead of now. Because the average people in my time definitely would not turn down the chance to switch places with a king from centuries before. I'm somebody who thinks it's really important for people to acknowledge their privilege in life. I think it helps make sense of your world. But the biggest privilege we all have is just being alive right now rather than back then.